In 1996, this man masterminded an operation so bold and ingenious that none of the casinos realised they were getting robbed right in front of their eyes. It's estimated that he cheated Vegas out of $16 million. But he'd never gambled in his life, let alone set foot in a casino before.
We were amazed. It was the first time we had come across this type of an operation.
You would never guess that this guy masterminded an operation like this.
So when he put his first token into a slot machine, Las Vegas would change forever. So how did an ordinary guy scam the biggest casinos in the world undetected? This is the story of Luis Colavecchio. Luis started out as a master craftsman and jewellery designer. If there was a specialist piece that needed creating, Luis was the man. The jewellery he made was one of a kind.
I always made handmade jewelry, and everything was one of a kind. If it was a hard job, Louis got it.
But not all is well. At the age of 51, Luis decided to retire after 27 years of hard work. But idling at home turned him depressed and bored. He felt like nobody needed him anymore. He was lost. Until one day in September of 1993, when one of his friends come up with a plan to cheer him up. A road trip to New England's brand new casino, the Foxwood. Inside the casino, Luis stood around awkwardly watching his friends play slots. It wasn't that he didn't want to play, he didn't even know how. So his friend gave him some slot machine tokens and told Luis to start inserting them. One token in, he felt nothing. Second token in, nothing. None of the flashy lights from the slot machines interested him at all. The game was plain boring. But when he picked up one of the larger Foxwood tokens that his friend had given him, something changed. He saw the coin, he held it. He waved his hand up and down, feeling the weight of it. He liked the shape, he liked the weight, he liked the design. Luis would later say in an interview, "When I saw that coin, it spoke to me. Lou, come here, I've got something for you. Make me." Which is exactly what he knew how to do. He was obsessed with the perfection of the coin. I mean, how could he resist trying to replicate it? Luis's craftsmanship is now faced with a challenge so overwhelming that all rationale was thrown out the window. He didn't care if he was committing a crime. All he cared about was accurately making a duplicate. And so his counterfeiting journey began. But there was one big problem. Copying a casino token is not an easy task. Just a few years before, counterfeiting would have been a lot simpler because silver dollar coins were used on slot machines. However, the casinos had just discontinued the silver coin and started using alternative coins. By 1979, all of Las Vegas casinos had switched to using their own tokens, minting millions of them in many denominations. And by 1993, when Luis saw that coin, casinos had become experts at detecting counterfeits. Casinos would watch you, and watch you closely. From coming in the front door to spending your last dollar, they would track it all. So if you come in with a bunch of counterfeit tokens and just cash out, it raises a lot of red flags. So here comes the real challenge. Luis had to not only replicate the design and the weight of the token, but it actually had to be playable. To illustrate the complexity of this challenge, consider that in 1986, slot machines were equipped with a mechanism known as the comparator. The device employs lasers and electrical currents to accurately assess a coin's size, pattern and material in less than a second. So as the coin falls down the chute, it examines the coin against 5,000 distinct reference points. The token's rim must be processed in a specific manner. It possesses a defined shape and angle since the surface is either completely flat or subtly convex, or contain features that alter light reflection in a unique way. Because of this electronic precision, casino chips frequently contain what is known as a smart mark. A smart mark acts as a security measure on the chip, serving in a similar function to that of a banknote. It comprises of a sequence of slanting grooves on the token that, when moving through the coin acceptor, emit reflections in a distinct pattern, enabling the coin acceptor to identify it. Now on first glance, the task seemed almost impossible to Colavecchio. He must create a replica so flawless that neither machine nor human can recognise the difference. For producing high quality counterfeits, he requires two pieces of equipment. One, professional quality dies. This is the core of a counterfeiter's setup. The die imprints onto a metal piece that will be transformed into a token for production. Without this, Luis' operation ceased to exist. and number 2, an industrial press. Purchasing both machines would turn his initial curiosity into a very costly business. But that would not stop Lewis from pursuing his goal.
I'm relentless. If you can say anything about me, I never quit. I'm tenacious. If I got something, a goal in mind, there's nothing that's going to stop me from achieving that goal. And that coin was not going to stop me.
So dipping into his retirement funds, Colavecchio purchases an automated industrial press. The cost is $35,000, equivalent to almost $75,000 in today's money, a hefty investment. However, that won't suffice. He must use quality dies. To create an impeccable die, Colavecchio needs to replicate it from an authentic token. There's only one way that it can be done: with an EDM. The electrical discharge machine represents another significant financial outlay to Colavecchio. He hasn't successfully created a single token yet, but he purchases the EDM anyway for $15,000. And the project is now consuming so much of his time that he can no longer conceal it from his girlfriend, Julie. Mesmerised by the potential riches, she agrees to help. After 6 months, on February 6, 1994, Lewis produces an initial counterfeit token, a Foxwoods $10 coin. Minutes later, with a freshly minted token in hand, he makes a beeline for Foxwoods. Lewis Colavecchio has invested $50,000 to create a single $10 token at this point, and now he's about to test it. In his eyes, the counterfeit is flawless. It was perfect. The design, weight and measurements were identical. But what happened next would break Lewis's heart. Expecting a favourable outcome, Lewis slid the token into the slot machine, and the machine rejects it in an instant. This can't be. Perhaps it's a coincidence, he thinks. So he picks the token back up and slots it in again. Nothing. He tries 3 more times, doesn't work. Lewis is defeated. Did he spend all of his time and money for nothing? Now, Colavecchio faces a crossroads. Does he abandon his efforts and minimise his losses, or continue investing, aiming to identify and rectify the token's errors? But as you know, Lewis is unrelenting. Lewis gets home and starts complaining to his girlfriend. The pair are gutted. He claims you could go over it with a microscope and you wouldn't find a difference. And in a raging fit, he throws the coins onto the table, shortly followed by a real token. And at that moment, they both pause and stare at one another. Both coins made different sounds when they fell, and that's when they realise the counterfeit coin was not identical. The difference? The counterfeit token was made out of a different material. He'd been looking at it the wrong way the whole time. The machine wasn't just looking at the design, the machine was also listening for the sound the tokens make as they fall. If Colavecchio decides to proceed, he must accurately determine the alloy composition of the genuine Foxwood token. He discovers the metallurgy labs across the country will conduct metal analysis for a fee, but he can't simply send them a casino token and inquire about its composition. That would instantly raise red flags. He needs to devise a more discreet plan to obtain the crucial information without raising suspicion. He goes ahead and sends it to the lab disguised as an innocent piece of jewellery, and then the results come back. The token is crafted from a unique alloy named HS2, a mixture of copper and zinc with an addition of 6% nickel silver. Yet again, this was another roadblock. You see, HS2 was extremely difficult, if not impossible, to get hold of.
It's a protected metal, and the only reason why it's protected is because there's British coins made out of this type of metal.
The nearest match is an alloy used by a company making cutlery in another state. It wasn't a perfect match for the HS2 alloy, although very similar. This alloy also consisted of copper and zinc, but with 7% nickel silver content, slightly higher than HS2. He believed it was close enough, and in truth, he didn't have any other options. So Lewis heads home to craft yet another token. It's a critical point for Lewis. He's poured his entire life savings into this project, amounting to over $100,000 in total. He heads into the casino, palms sweating. He inserts the new token into the machine, crossing his fingers and praying for his life that it won't get rejected. And guess what? It works. It's 1994, and at last, he's done it. But forging an effective token is just the first step. He can't make any life-changing money just yet. He must formulate a plan that will outsmart the casino on a massive scale. Keep in mind, it's crucial to remember that everyone on the casino floor is under constant surveillance. Redeeming tokens without engaging in play will attract unwanted scrutiny, something Colavecchio wishes to avoid. He's aware that he cannot directly exchange his counterfeit tokens at the cashier. He needs to use them in play first, ensuring he does so for a sufficient duration to avoid drawing the watchful eyes of those greedy pit bosses. Now, Lewis didn't want to draw too much attention with large sums of money either, So instead of hitting a casino for $2 or $3 million, he decided to hit 30 casinos for $100,000 each. A smart move. He needed more casinos to visit, and the closest place to find them was 5 hours south of Providence in Atlantic City, New Jersey. It means that instead of one token, he must accurately replicate numerous distinct designs across 3 denominations, $10, $25 and $100 for each of the 12 casinos in Atlantic City. This presents not only a significant technical hurdle, but also an enormous workload. Worse still, he's still doing it all by himself. He just can't keep up. He needs more hands to produce the sheer magnitude of coins, and it needs to be someone that he can trust. So he went to the only die maker that he knew, his old buddy Al. Known as one of the best tool and die makers in the state, Lewis cuts him in for a percentage. And they're in business, and this time they'll be operating at scale. Late in 1996, Lewis and Julie are about to start their casino assault. By the early hours of the following morning, the pair have swindled $25,000 from Atlantic City casinos. Come the second night, they've successfully circulated all $50,000 in tokens without arousing any suspicion. The pit bosses didn't even see it coming. In the following 3 months, Lewis and Al escalate their efforts, embarking on a huge counterfeiting spree. The money is rolling in and no one has noticed, not yet at least. After Atlantic City, he heads west to Las Vegas and Reno. There, he gathers sample tokens from as many casinos as possible before taking them home to replicate. After analysing the tokens, it's only a matter of time before the team can produce indistinguishable counterfeits on a grand scale. It appears that nothing can hinder him from making tens of millions from the casinos. Yet Lewis overlooks one crucial aspect. You see, casinos routinely check their tokens to account for loss and damage. Eventually, an observant employee at Caesars Palace in Atlantic City detects an anomaly. She reaches out to the New Jersey State Police detective assigned to the Casino Gaming Bureau. Caesars has found itself approximately $24,000 over inventory, specifically in $10 tokens. For a single denomination, this is a very large discrepancy. Enter Detective Flamer. Despite the lack of validation, Detective Flamer alerts all of Atlantic City's casinos to the possibility that a sophisticated counterfeiting operation might be operating nearby. He asks the casinos to intensify their video surveillance around slot machines in particular. And then, one evening, the surveillance cameras at Bally's Atlantic City capture something a little strange. A man using $10 tokens loses 3 coins in a malfunctioning machine, but doesn't complain or ask for credit. A recreational gambler always complains. Always. With an attendant nearby, he could have easily said something, yet he chose to leave the casino instead. Following his departure, the slot machine is inspected. More than 200 suspected counterfeit tokens were discovered inside. The police are now onto him. They have his face on tape, but they don't know his name. Detective Flamer is one step closer to catching Lewis. 48 hours after Lewis was caught on tape, he was nowhere to be found, but Detective Flamer had a hunch. He believes that Lewis would be in another casino nearby, and he was right. As soon as I walked into the slot area, I saw him. Right away, I recognised him immediately, said Flamer. Now, while the detective is calling surveillance, Lewis cashes in and disappears from the casino. He's gone, vanished into thin air. And while this might seem like a victory for Lewis, the police have now linked the car he was driving back to his identity. They know his name. Colavecchio's flawless scheme has started to unravel. He's no longer hidden, although both the casino and the authorities are still unaware how much money he's taken. Next, Detective Flamer reaches out to Rhode Island's police department. He wants to initiate a multi-state policing effort and track Colavecchio around the clock. But disaster strikes for Flamer. The malfunctioning casino tokens in Rhode Island do not constitute a criminal offence because casino tokens are not considered official currency in that state. He can't believe his ears. Under Rhode Island legislation, counterfeiting casino tokens is not illegal, which meant that Lewis was protected. Flamer is fuming and can't make a move. He's got a crime, a crook, and the evidence to convict him, but there's nothing he can do. His hands are tied. The only option is to remain vigilant in Atlantic City, hoping that Julie or Lewis come back in an attempt to cash out their remaining casino tokens. Now at this point, the duo have no idea how close they are to getting caught. They persist in their relentless spree, targeting casinos everywhere but Atlantic City, completely unaware the investigation is closing in on them. But then they get greedy. They decide to hit Atlantic City one last time. And when he goes to cash in the chips at the cashier, he hears the words from behind him.
Mr. Colavecchio, would you please step away from the counter?
At last, he's been caught. Transporting counterfeit tokens across state lines does constitute a crime. Flamer has finally secured the interstate investigation that he's been after for weeks. And then the authorities search Colavecchio's workshop. They find 123 dies along with an EDM and industrial press. They even get their hands on detailed instructions that he had written for Al at his workshop. The result? Colavecchio, Julie and Al are charged with violating trademark law and interstate trafficking of counterfeit goods. How much the trio has taken is uncertain, although several estimations hover around $16 million. To avoid prison time, Al turns on Lewis and testifies, sending Colavecchio to jail for 7 years. But it doesn't end there, because after he was released, he was arrested by the FBI again for counterfeiting once more. I guess old habits die hard. It's believed that many of the tokens were never even recovered, and some are still in circulation today. In July 2020, Lewis passed away due to health complications. May he rest in peace.